Across Wales, people are already building a better future in their businesses, their communities and everyday life. GreenWales brings those stories to life. Wales Future First brings in the voices shaping what comes next, because the future of Wales isn't something far away. It's something we're building right now together. Today I'm joined by Stanley Townsend from Climate Cymru, part of Global Cymru, a network that's helped unite voices across Wales to push for collective climate action and long-term change. It's great to have you here. How are you today? You all right?
Yeah, good, mate. Thanks for having me. It's an important conversation. Excited to see what we can explore.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see it where we actually end up on this journey of Wales Future First. We're asking every guest the same set of questions to build a shared picture of Wales and its future. So better off just to start.
Yeah, let's go.
When you think about Wales in 20 to 30 years, what does a good future actually look like?
Yeah, I think the main thing for me here is the changes many of us are talking about, whether that's like more economic opportunity, thriving nature, lower energy bills, lower food bills, more affordable, accessible transport, like all these different things that many of us want to see. They're no longer these abstract things in the future of like, oh, we're working towards this, you know. It's like they are visible and felt, and it just becomes normal. Like, we're no longer having a conversation about like, what if we put a community wind turbine here, or what if we had solar panels on the rugby club, or what if we had a community agriculture scheme over there. Like, that just becomes normal. And then like the people that come from the places we do that may be in our shoes, it's just normal, you know. And life just becomes fairer, people have power in their hands, and that nature is restored for the benefit of everyone. And that can show up in many different ways, like the food we eat and the health of it, what goes back to farmers, or like the quality of the natural environments we have for our mental health and physical well-being. Like, it just shows up everywhere. And then the exciting bit is we're having different conversations about what the possibilities for Wales might be. So for me, it's that visible, felt impact across Wales, no place unturned, no corner of Welsh landscape, environment, society unturned. And then we can just be having really different and like bubbling up with excitement around like what that could look like.
Do you know what gets me excited when you say that? There's a bit of evidence that's already happening. My local rugby club, they've had their entire roof filled with solar.
Yeah.
And I was counting because it's right by my local shop. It's like 45 solar panels on it.
Yeah.
And you're just like, that's amazing. They're not going to just use all that for themselves. It doesn't power. It's not right next to the field, etc., where they actually do the sports, the rugby.
Yeah.
So you know they're exporting, which means you know they're making money on it. That's exactly what you want, because these places got to survive. We're turning away from it being the pub. It's not going to be that pub in 40 years' time, because people's attitudes are changing, the way that people live is changing, and that means all these spaces are changing as well. And I'm seeing that across the board. I think it's Blackwood Miners at the moment. They're looking at changing. They're looking at changing the way the theatre works, and they're inviting lots of partners in now. So it might not just be a theatre in the future. It'll be a hub of all different types of services, which just means a lot of collaboration. Which is perfect.
And a lot of community. And I was down Blackwood Miners Institute recently, actually, like what a special building we should be using that can connect us back to our heritage and then help guide the future we can realise. And I got another example of a really special rugby club project, Bridgend Ravens. The brewery field is called the Electric Brewery Field now, because they're getting solar and battery installed. And the thing is, that's not just like the climate's sake, you know. That's because they've got outrageous energy bills at the moment, and that's challenging the future of the club. And that's not this abstract thing. That's like a real important community hub for all generations to interact with each other and have a community. That makes me think of the excitement I got to go and train rugby as a young kid in Risca or Rogerstone. And that is exactly like a brilliant example of like, we get these things right, and then we can realise our potential, and just it's out of that survival mode and starting to thrive more. And that's what excites me, and that's the Wales I want to be a part of, and that's the Wales I'm going to fight for.
I hope That's amazing. I hope you've inspired me to think of an idea. I hope that it gets to the profits get paid. They pay the staff, they pay the fields, they pay for the uniforms and the kits for the kids or the kits for the adults. So it's all that social value.
Yeah.
That's what I consider genuine social value,
Yeah.
you know, and that's where it's actually been delivered on the. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on that project just to see how it goes. I need to go and maybe I should go and talk to his Cherokee Rugby Club, the Zebras.
Amazing.
So I'll have to go and have a chat with them. Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you. Which leads me beautifully on to what responsibility does your role carry in protecting the future?
Yeah, so Climate Cymru, I'll talk to the organisation. We exist to, I suppose, address climate change, prevent harm from climate change, but do that in the best way possible for the people of Wales, whether that's about our economy, our culture, how fair our society is, as well as our environment, making sure we get the most of it and we address as many of those systemic issues as possible. And Climate Cymru does lots of things. I'm in the sort of politics team, and the way I kind of see my role is not just engaging politicians like behind the scenes, like a lobbyist sort of thing. It's really about connecting politicians to the perspectives and like lived experience of people across Wales, because politics hasn't always done a good job of like really understanding what people think, like what they're calling for. And I think something we'll definitely get into today is like what people are already doing. And I always talk to politicians about the amazing stories of projects and communities in Wales, because it gives them a lot of inspiration. It gives them more ambition and kind of license to operate, because it's no longer this like random thing in a, like I've written a lot of reports sadly and I'm really keen not to do much more of that, because these perspectives need to be heard and they're really powerful. And there's also, particularly with climate change, there's like this weird perception gap of, I think it's around 90% of people in the UK, Wales, want to see more action on climate change, but politicians don't know that. They see like the news bites and from certain sources, and also a lot of people don't understand that their neighbours and their family are also like really up for this as well. And for me, I want to like activate that and I want to energise that. And it's not just about the climate, as I said, it's about the future of Wales, its economy, its society, all those bits of the Wellbeing Act we'll get into. And this is one of the reasons like why I came back home to Wales, because I think we can do things differently. And that comes a lot from that Valley's upbringing of knowing what's gone wrong in terms of closing of the coal fields and coal mines and the legacy that's left in South Wales, and knowing that we have to do different in this transition, because there's a lot of things we need to change, but we need to make sure that that makes Wales a better and fairer place.
So where do you think then that we're still reacting instead of preventing?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely on a journey here, and we are seeing a lot of reactions where we could have made, and this is it really, it's like long-term decisions. There's things we should have been doing 10, 20, 30 years ago, maybe even before I was born, and we've been in a better place now. One really good but very painful example is the energy crisis we're in at the moment. What's happening in the Gulf is another shock to our system, because it's showing the impacts of our dependency on fossil fuels. They're volatile, we can't control them, and they're more expensive than renewables. And now that is just going to hit households again, like it did when Russia invaded Ukraine and our energy prices spiked. And it's going to hit people a bit harder now, because our economy is not what it was pre-Russian invasion. And a lot of people are exhausted and struggling, and that's unfair. And if 20 whatever years ago we had started to really think into the future of like, what should our energy system look like? How can it deliver bills, prevent harm from climate change, and ultimately be a fair system for people? Probably still seeing the same in terms of the impacts of, say, flooding, for example, that we tend to react to like the damages of, okay, there's flooded homes, communities, we need to help repair those now and support these communities to rebuild. But that would be a bit different if we had been thinking about long-term planning. How do we reduce the impacts of climate change? Where do we need to be doing land management to reduce the risk of flooding? How do we plan our towns differently? How do we react differently? And it's probably safe to say the same for sort of the NHS. I'm not a health expert, but even without being an expert, it's pretty obvious to me that we are treating illness rather than like building our health. And this is the really tricky thing, say, the world I spend a lot of time in with politicians, that they're stuck making hard decisions now because better decisions weren't made before. And this kind of vicious cycle that I think we need to find a bit more sort of political ambition for, because we're going to be stuck in this cycle otherwise. And that future, if we're preventing things, is definitely much better.
And you said some really interesting things. I was having a little write down of some notes, and we talked about flooding, and an example of how the Future Generations Act has come into force with the flooding side of things in Pontypridd. Is that street that always got flooded, and they had a decision to make, the council and the government. Do you leave them there? And let them suffer the consequences with insurance, etc., or do we pay them to leave their homes? Now, without the Future Generations Act, you could not say which way that would have gone. But because of the Future Generations Act, they had to. It was preventative. It was long term. It was it was all positive, and they got paid to leave. And it's not ideal, and no one wanted that to happen. You would much rather them stay there. But because the climate has changed, the extremes in weather has come, it means those decisions have to be made. But thank goodness the decisions that were made were good for the people, good for Ponty, because hopefully they can make like a flood break there, and hopefully save like the Lido and that sort of area. And then renewables, that's a really exciting place with electric cars. But as you say, right now it seems to be the individual have to run the costs themselves, where actually if there was a system where, I think it's coming soon, where every new build will have to have renewables on there, etc. But that does mean, if I don't know how many homes there are in Wales, you might know that figure, but
how many homes
millions,
I'm
guessing. There's about 3 million people in Wales.
3.3 million of us, I think, so I'm not sure about
but only the people who can afford it, invest and think about it, the first sort of trailblazers of sustainability are the ones affording it, which is great, and it's helping and it's inspiring, but the average person can't just afford that, because it's just, you say, people are just struggling to...
And that's what the act should make us do, is to think like big picture, and like there's this sort of thing out in this kind of space, whatever you want to call it, climate, sustainability, of like you're a bad person for making like imperfect decisions. I drove here in a car today.
Yes.
I maybe could have taken public transport, but because the busyness of what's happening and where I need to be afterwards, it's way easier to drive a car. And you can't be perfect in an imperfect system. And the conversation has to be about, how do we enable people, help them to make better decisions for them, for their family, for their communities, for Wales, and also the wider world. There's some scary things out there. Life is rough and tough for most of us, and really hard for a lot of people at the moment, but being part change can feel really good. And it's also, for me, like a way we can reconnect and rebuild our communities as well, by like doing things together, whether that's something like growing food at home and sharing it with your neighbours, inviting them round for dinner. That's a pretty special thing. Or I even had this experience last night of a few friends messaging me about like, oh, what do you think about solar and renewables and oil and gas? And they had a few fair questions, but like one of my friends was basically saying he worries about his daughter's future. And it gave me a lot more motivation, like made me feel good knowing that like I could help him out. And like that thing we've got in common is like the future of our communities and like the future of Wales. And that is a really powerful thing, particularly for us Welsh people.
And if I've got children, I don't know if you've got children yourself, but I try and embody the Future Generations Act through her. And I live it through her, because she is the Future Generations Act. And I think that's what's giving me the energy. That's what gave me the energy to change in the first place into the environment sector, was I want to protect her future for Wales. And now I'm hopefully that conduit between the two. So you sort of touched on it then, but I was about to ask, where does long-term thinking break down in practice? And what does that look like on the ground for Climate Cymru?
So I think a lot of the big picture challenges, there's definitely a few worth talking to. Given politics is a pretty powerful thing, governments have a lot of the levers of change. Short-term cycles in politics is pretty challenging. Politicians, unsurprisingly, they're thinking about the next 4 years, where we want them to be thinking about the next 10, 15, 20 years. The way kind of budgets are done is tricky for long term, because it tends to be like, oh, there's this housing thing here, this transport thing here, this like environment thing here, but we need to be able to bring those things together. I think one of the other really important things for long-term thinking and doing it in practice is the involvement of people. And that you just illustrated that really well. Like, you're thinking about your daughter's future. That's a long time into the future. You might be thinking about when she's 18 and she's leaving home, or like when she has kids, or when she's elderly, you know, like that's a long time. And us normal people, not politicians, tend to think in those terms. So we need to make sure that, and we joke about this in Climate Cymru a bit, real people, you and me, our friends, neighbours, communities, like, have to be part of these conversations. We can break a lot of the traps and cycles that kind of politicians are stuck in. And then we also, and this is something we try and do a fair bit of in Climate Cymru, is, and it's difficult not just to react to the now, because the now is really challenging, but always to be thinking about in the future and preparing for the future. There's this really interesting saying I've come across. I think it's actually from indigenous peoples in North America, and just more generally, that they think about the seventh generation. So they're not thinking about 7 days' time or 7 months. They're thinking about, what decisions are we taking now? What does it mean for my seventh generation? And that can sound quite abstract, but I was in a room with some family recently, and we had great grandson, his dad, and then his dad as well. So there's actually 100 years, like 4 generations in that room, and those are the terms we need to be thinking about. And like, us real people tend to think about that. So for me, that is how I like to embody and practice a lot of long-term thinking in my work, is making sure these perspectives are part of that kind of political system, which doesn't tend to do a very good job of thinking long-term.
There's a book called The Good Ancestor.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm listening to the audiobook right now, and it talks about 7 generations.
Yeah.
And it's the tribal leaders, the way they make decisions is they won't make a decision without it not affecting the 7 generations.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that is definitely, there's a lot of synergy with there and the Future Generations Act. Because that's really what it is, the Future Generations Act. If you're thinking the future generations, it is 7 generations from now. And I've started applying it to my life.
Yeah.
It's made it a lot simpler.
Yeah.
It's made it really simple. Because I'm like, I don't have to make those decisions. Because I know there's no point making it, you know. And it's making me, I think when you can think of, it's really easy to get pulled in on life's emergencies, life's every day.
It's normal.
It's very normal, you know. And I think it's a good exercise if you can, especially when you got kids, because they're like, I want this, I want that, you know, can we go and do this? What are we doing this weekend? It's very much react. You're like, oh my God, the pressure in life. Yeah, what next? It always feels like pressure cooker. When I get to the weekend, my daughter wants like a parade, I feel like, every weekend. So if Wales fully embody the spirit of the Future Generations Act, what would feel different day to day?
Yeah, I'd like to think a lot would feel different. When you think about there are 7 goals of the Wellbeing Act, and I'd like to think all of those would be felt by the people of Wales, whether that's like more cohesive communities, they're thriving more, we're interacting more, whether that's a more equal society, that Wales feels like it's a fairer place in terms of like the opportunities we have for jobs, or the fairness of the cost of things, or what we have in our community to be able to enjoy life. We've got more opportunity there as well. Whether that's also, say, our thriving language. Like, I'd like to see Welsh practiced more. I'm a Welsh learner. And yeah, I think it's coming back to something I said earlier of the just life feeling tangibly, visibly, obviously better. Because what the act is basically about is public institutions, public money being used to solve multiple challenges, and that can show up in so many different parts of life, like whether that's the quality of our homes, like them being warm and inexpensive to fuel and heat, that being like a normal thing, you know, or whether it becomes a normal thing that our energy bills are lower, a normal thing that we've got a community wind turbine, or like there's solar panels on the rugby club, you know, or the leisure centre. Like, that's that change I want to see. And when I think about the future generations in Wales who might be in my shoes in 20 years, like these conversations and the things that we want to see just become like normal. Like, oh yeah, my mum or my brother has just cooked some potatoes on the weekend that from the garden kind of thing. Or, yeah, I took the train to Cardiff. Easy, that's just normal, you know, like all these changes we're trying to make now just become normal. And then we're in like a space, all manner of things in my head could come out of what life in Wales could look like. So I think it's ultimately all these things we know need to happen, from like the quality of our housing, accessibility, affordability of transport, how we can access nature spaces and how healthy they are, how we produce energy, who owns it, the money in our pockets, the things we get to do with the money in our pockets, like that just becomes normal. And then we're asking ourselves like really interesting questions of like, what could our lives look like? What could our communities do? What could Wales become ultimately? So yeah.
Yeah, and I think coming from that as well, we were talking in a previous interview about how we measure growth in the country. And I don't think GDP is a great way to measure growth for us, because is it Iceland or Greenland that measures happiness?
Yeah, there's a few different. I think New Zealand measures happiness as well.
And I think that's a really
Yeah.
interesting take. And if
Yeah.
you think about the Future Generations Act, it's about your general well-being. Like,
Yeah.
as you as a person, are you happy? Are you healthy?
Yeah.
Because if you're happy and you're healthy, then you're not doing things that are damaging to you, the environment, or others at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think if we all live in a more, say, cohesive, a joined up community where we're all actually supporting each other,
Yeah.
there is not an us and them. It's, oh, you say the growers grow the food,
Yeah.
there's a harvest time. It's a lovely, you know, I've gone back to living seasonally, because I think it's a really nice way to live. So I sleep more in the winter. It's natural. I sleep more in the winter. I'm more in the summer, and it's a natural way of living, because I think technology and like the chimes of work can kind of manipulate you to be a certain type of person. And from my old career, that's really what I was. But it was very unhealthy, and I couldn't do it forever. And the healthy way for me to live is to recognize when I'm tired, to recognize when I need an early night, to recognize the food that I'm eating and where it's coming from. And I think, again, when we talk about the incremental things, when I started growing food in my garden, you know, I did peas, tomatoes, I think rhubarb, I think and chive. And that first year of harvest changed my life, because I tasted a tomato that was grown in my garden, and it tasted much better than what I bought in the supermarket, and that just won me over. So now I grow like 20 different things. Stressful at the moment because everything's in the windowsill.
Enjoyable though. But
I love it. It's stressful because I'm like, I just remembered I haven't watered something this morning. I'm like, I don't want it to die before I get home. But that's such a nice thing that's part of my life.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a healthy thing to be part of your life.
100%. Yeah. And like, that's an amazing illustration, example of like what I want everyone to have the opportunity to be able to do. And I think that's a real thing to pick up on, is like giving, I talk about this word like agency. It needs a bit of explaining, but it's like kind of putting power back in people's hands to be able to have more control over their lives and like what they do. We're not stuck in this kind of like firefighting mode of exhaustion and struggle and just like surviving but not thriving. That's what I want everyone to be able to thrive to the point where they can express themselves in different ways, whether that's like lots of mountain biking in the valleys because we've got great places to do that, or whether that means having a community project to do some form of theatre, or having a community group to try and get a wind turbine in the backyard kind of thing, or a local group producing food and sharing that with people. Like, these are the opportunities that we can have, and that's the Wales I want to see, and that's the one that drives me day to day. I'm not living very seasonally at the moment. I kind of go, because that's my motivation, is like giving everyone that sort of more equal opportunity. And there's another thing in there of, I think, and I always view change through that kind of valleys lens of a lot of our history and change for places you and I are from, whether that's Isloyn, the Rhondda, Torfaen, wherever. Change has happened to us way too much because we haven't had that kind of like community power. It's there, but it needs to be activated and enabled so we can, I guess, be the masters of our own destiny and like have more opportunity, and something that really excites me is just more chance to like express ourselves. Basically, I feel like I'm seeing a lot more kind of art, culture, and expression coming out from the valleys, and that like really motivates me, because going back to perceptions as a young person, like I didn't think that stuff existed, but it's there and it's starting to emerge and shoot, and I just want that to flourish. Unity is progress, and like not to look back with too many like too heavy a rose tinted lens, or even like negative views on the challenges of the past, because they're real. We as a culture are fighters, like, because we've had to be, like, Wales has had to have community because life wasn't as fair, so we needed that to progress. Like, look at one of the shining examples of what's great in the UK and what people love, the NHS. That was started in Tredegar because people were clubbing together to look after one another, and now that's grown into the NHS, and everyone loves and respects the NHS because of what it does for us, and it's a pretty unique thing like in the world. That started in Tredegar.
I know, and that's and one thing in Wales we need to start doing is celebrating what we're good at, and what we found. And because I didn't know in Pontypridd that's where our national anthem was created until Steadford was there, and they did that big mural. And I drive past that, and I'm like, what is that? And it's like, oh, that's where it was written. You're like, why have I had to wait to 2025, 2024 to learn about that? That should just be common knowledge in Wales. So I'm going to kind of get you to do one thing here. So if someone watched this conversation in 30 years' time, what one decision would you hope Wales made today? So we've got this whole thing that we want. If I said you can only choose one, what would that one thing be?
I've got a good one, and it's something I'm really passionate about.
Come on,
which is, it's a big thing. I basically don't think the type of politics and government we have at the moment is kind of capable of getting us there. Like representative democracy, we need, and this is in the Act, involvement, and the meaningful involvement of everyone, because broadly speaking, a lot of the easier decisions to get us where we need to be have kind of been taken, and now we've got like pretty hard ones. They have different impacts, or can have different impacts across different bits of society, challenges the economy, and it's often viewed that like the pathway of getting us to where we need to be is a technical one. You need people like Stan who write reports and like occasionally wears a suit and has a tie and a lot of time on his laptop. That's not the case. Like where we need to go is a question of like ethics and morals, and we need everyone in Wales to have the opportunity to be part of decision making. And to be honest, I think when I think of my family in the valleys, they are a lot more sage and wise and, dare I say, ambitious and caring for one another than a lot of politicians are. And we need everyone to be part of that decision making process, so it builds trust and legitimacy, addresses like genuine concerns and questions that people have. It also helps us get past some of the vested interest of like the status quo, and ultimately we have better decisions. So how can we have a more deliberative society where people are like meaningfully involved in decision makings and they're part of it? We're not just reliant on like politicians to do it, and that is the single thing I would love to see happen, because that's just going to ignite the potential of the Welsh people, and ultimately it's going to lead to better decision making.
Yeah, and I hope the way the Senedd is now being sort of re-looked at, and the way that we're voting for our people coming into office, having that shared representation, that's actually the beginning of it, because you hope instead of having one person representing an area, you'll have up to 6 people representing an area, and have all different parties working together, which I think will just give more room for the community to have its opinion. But also, instead of someone, I won't name any party in particular, but any party that gets in power, they then are, controlled by that party. But if you've got 3 parties in every area that all have a control, they're gonna have to they're gonna have to embed the Future Generations Act in the way that they work, as in collaboratively, long term, because that's the only way it's going to work, and it's got to be done by influence. And I think there's much more for it. So I'm really looking, and I'm, a lot of people, there's been people out there that don't speak too highly about having these extra Senedd members. But I think if we're going to upgrade our parliament, upgrade our democracy, and get us to the next place where we are more prosperous, we are more independent, we can make better decisions for Wales, we are going to take our parliament to the next next stage, then I think this is the way to go. And it is, I'm really Quietly, I'm not that quiet. Really excited by it.
Yeah, and it's really not about party politics or like ideologies. It's about people working together and kind of working with different views. Like we have that at the dinner table all the time, don't we? Or like in family scenarios of like you have to build bridges to go somewhere. If you tell someone you're wrong and try and stick them in a corner, definitely had that with my family a fair old bit.
Yeah.
It doesn't work, does it? Like that's that common sense kind of thing that like most of us normal people kind of have. But I do hold that hope for the next Senate that because of the changes in the system, it will encourage people and politicians to work more together. And what I want to see is like embedding and making it normal that the people of Wales are brought into decision making. And the really important bit there is that people have time to talk together and like figure out our differences, hear the perspective of someone they don't often come into contact with, or like they might have a certain idea of for XYZ reason, and breaking down those barriers and realizing actually, know what, we're all here for like pretty much the same thing, aren't we? And we can build bridges together. And that's just going to lead to better outcomes for Wales ultimately.
Right then, here we go. So this is my favourite bit of the whole show is there a project or organisation in your orbit that you think is quietly doing, and maybe not quietly, doing brilliant work that GreenWales should go and see in the grassroots part of the series?
Yeah, this is the hardest question. I'm on the hot seat now because there's so many, and seeing different projects across Wales gives me so much motivation and inspiration that we can get to where we need to be. So I'm racking my brain now for what the best one might be. And
you can come up with, I'm going to give you how many have you got in your head? How many's floating around?
There's a lot. I think there's 3 I want to talk to, but let me give one that's really relevant now, given the problems we're having with our energy system, and that's this amazing group called Owl Lamantawi. If you ever heard of it, it's just north of Swansea. It's kind of the best example of a community energy project, I think, in Wales, or one of, and it's just a really shining light for what can be done. And it's a community energy project which is powering its community in terms of energy, lower costs. They have control over it, and it's also empowering communities. Like they've taken over I think it's an old primary school that was going to be closed, and they've turned it into this like really amazing community space where there's local people making art and like even producing stained glass window tiles, which I wouldn't think would be coming out of North Swansea. But like this stuff exists, it's just creating space for it. And I think it's just like an absolutely amazing project. And there's this brilliant film I'd encourage all your listeners to watch called Cold Beneath Our Feet and the Wind Above Our Heads. And what it does through the lens of these 2 school kids in the Rhondda is tell a story and teach them about our coal mining heritage in terms of what it represented, what the communities were like, the fight they had, the problems it created, and then that transition phase of how it kind of came to an end. And they didn't stop the film there, because it's not just about learning about history and kind of what went wrong. It's also sharing that so we can properly learn those lessons. Our heritage and history can guide us into the future. And then so it draws a parallel between coal mining and community energy, because for me it's like the opposite. It's such a special opportunity. Like you and me could have a crack at a gas plant somewhere in the valleys, but we ain't going to find the money for that. But we can find the money for like wind turbines or solar energy. And then what's really, really important about that is we own that, and it's putting money back into our communities at a time it's really needed. So we're creating wealth and we're keeping it. And it's just like such a powerful story of like, ultimately for me, using our history and heritage to guide our future. And it's like, yeah, I get riled up about it because it means a lot. That means a lot to me.
No, I absolutely love that. I have heard of the project. It is on my radar. I'm glad you said it, because now I'm coming.
Yeah,
coming
go
to see
there.
you.
Yeah.
And I can't wait. Please say yes.
Yeah.
No, that's great. And you did you want to mention 2 others? I will just. I've got one question on them. How long's the project been active?
I'm not sure how long Harry's been going. I want to say it must be between 5 and 10 years, because Dan, who's sort of he co-founded it, I think maybe with his partner, but he's the person you sort of see talking about it a lot, and he's one of those sort of brilliant, stubborn optimists who's really fought hard for it. Like, he refers to it as like the biggest challenge of his life kind of thing. So it takes time, and he's kind of one of those like early movers, like people that just got out the blocks quickly. So I want to say it's like 5-10 years, and there's a couple other projects like that, so I'll just sneakily chuck another one in.
Yeah, go on. I'm going to give you, what I'll say is you can chuck in 2 more, but you can only use half the time.
All right, cool. So another one just like that is Gower Power, which is another community energy project on the Gower. The thing that's really unique and special about them is they've also, I think, used a lot of the proceeds to reinvest and create a community-supported agriculture scheme. So they're growing their own food there. And what's also really special about them is they're really involving people from the local community. So they get school kids from the local area to come, teach them about growing food, healthy living, sustainable food. And then I met someone from there recently, a couple of years ago, who was also doing like home visits, because the kids had got so excited about it. They were talking to mum and dad about it, and they were like working with families to help them grow food at home. It's like, how cool is that? And another one that's quite different, I came across recently, is called Abertillery Aspirations, and it's like a pretty new group, but they are really fighting to bring together their community to make it more cohesive and help regenerate Abertillery. And having grown up in a similar community, I didn't really grow up with seeing groups like that come together. I've only heard about it recently. That I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I want to be a part of that.
Thank you very, very much for coming on to the channel today. It's been amazing to see the perspective of Climate Cymru and actually to hear about all the different projects, have that high level but grassroots approach at the same time. We'd like to say thank you to everybody coming on here by adding you to our something called the Collective. Awesome. We don't do memberships, we do collectives here, because we're not a thing where you're like, you have to pay a monthly subscription, but it's more that you're proving that you are who you are by doing what you do. And for us, we give a little GreenWales badge to everybody that comes on the show.
I'll stick it next to my little
there you go flag. That's all yours, okay? And hopefully you'll show it to everybody and show that GreenWales, because that's what we're trying to be, is transparent, open, honest. We've got the grassroots side where we go out onto site. This is what the studio's about now, is bringing that high level, bringing everybody together. Thank you very much. This is Wales, building a better future together. Big thanks to Avango Powering Sustainable Productions for making this possible. You're watching GreenWales, Wales Future First. If you believe in the future of Wales, support it, like, comment and subscribe. Thank you.